UFC 323 just recently wrapped up, and I'm going to recap the entire card. It was the last pay-per-view of 2025 and potentially the last pay-per-view of all time as we close out the ESPN era, and it was a damn good one. I'm excited to talk about all of the matchups. There were some great fights on this card, some sick finishes, and I still feel right in the high of the excitement after the fact and a little bit giddy at all that went down. So let's jump right into it. Fight number one, Mairon Santos, Muhammad Naimov. Marvin Santos looked pretty good. He was able to shut down Naimov's striking game with his technically superior game and then hurt him bad, knock him down with the straight, and then finish the fight off. It was a beautiful victory for Santos to not only win, but win by knockout. For a young prospect like him, knocking out Naimov means a lot. You know, Naimov, he has a tricky stand-up game. He's got some grappling. He really is like a good journeyman, even though record-wise he's not a journeyman, but skill set-wise, that's what he is. He's a good test, right, for Myron Santos. It was, I'd say, a bit of a step down in competition from Sadiq Yusuf, but he's still a blossoming prospect and an Ultimate Fighter winner that I think the UFC seems to be slightly invested in at this point. And he goes out and gets a third-round KO, showing that he can find the violent shots. And after the fight, he did talk about the weight miss and said there was a miscalculation. He definitely didn't look as ripped as you see in the picture in front of us on the scales. He looked a little pudgier. And I think that if he gets a proper nutritionist, he could have some fun matchups here at 145. I don't like him at 55. I will say I think that substantially impacts his long-term fighting potential and how far he can take it. But at 145 pounds, like if you told me Myron Santos could potentially become a top 15 guy, I mean, is it crazy to think that in a couple of years he couldn't be towards what the top 15 offers? I don't think so. I think he really has great potential. Now, granted, is it too much too soon? Maybe, but I just think that he has some good natural talent. He has a natural fight IQ. He's got good timing on his strikes. He's got power. He's in shape. He's getting better. Obviously, miss weight here, which is not good. It's just I feel as though he's got something to make happen. He's 25, and 5'7" is a fine height for 145. But I will say, like, if he can't get this figured out and make this featherweight division, he's too small to be a successful lightweight contender. But I will say I rate Myron Santos as potentially one of the more underrated prospects in the UFC's first fight of the night. And I think he kind of gets brushed under the rug as far as skill sets go, but he's got a real legit MMA game. He won the Ultimate Fighter. He's good everywhere. He's got, I think, a good 3-round gas tank too. And I rate him as a high fight IQ prospect, and dominating Naimov and then knocking him out couldn't have went much better. I think this is actually better than a first round KO. We got to see him work for 2 rounds and then get an early stoppage into round number 3. So good W for him. Shout out Myron Santos, biggest win of his life. Is it the biggest win? Yusuf's bigger win, but an important win and a knockout win that keeps the hype coming. And look for big things, relatively soon. Q2, 2026 makes a lot of sense to get him back. And I look forward to watching it all play out. I like Myron Santos a lot. Let's keep running. Next fight on the card, Mansur Abdul-Malik, Antonio Trócoli. This wasn't close. It was never going to be close. Antonio Trócoli is not UFC level at all. He is a professional poker player, and he also fights. Mansur Abdul-Malik, he was able to get this fight to the ground and then do what I thought he would. He'd find a submission. I called the sub, which was big plus money, and I felt like his submission threat with the front headlock would be everything, because Trócoli, you think Brazilian guy, you think jiu-jitsu, but he really isn't good. Antonio Trócoli should not be on this roster. That's the honest truth of it all. I think he gets maybe overglazed because he went a few rounds with Shara Bullet, but Shara Bullet's like primarily just a striker. And, I think Shara Bullet's one of the guys that's kind of been carried a bit by the UFC, and he's really not that good. Mansur Abdul-Malik made it look easy against Trócoli. Also, comes back from his first negative moment in his career. He doesn't have a pro loss, but, the draw against Brundage, initially it was scored as a win and then overturned to a draw. So he probably still feels like he's 10-0 coming into this fight. But, comes back from a lesser performance against, tricky journeyman like Cody Brundage, and then makes easy work against a guy that, shouldn't be in the UFC at all. I definitely like Mansur Abdul-Malik. I do think that, like, his hype has kind of gotten the brakes pumped on a bit because of Ateba Gatier just looking like a god amongst men. and it just does something different for the MMA community, me included. I mean, Ateba Gautier is like the terrifying middleweight wonder on the come up, and like Malik, he was kind of making waves, but after the draw against Brundage, it's like, okay, maybe he's all right. I don't think you should really step his competition rate up too much, though. I don't think anything too crazy too soon. If you're asking me honestly, like Zach Reese would be sensible, even potentially if they really want to give him a bit of a push, you could say, okay, we could do him versus maybe, and I say maybe heavily, like maybe Ismail Nariev, but I don't know. I mean, beating Trócoli, you're literally beating the worst guy on the roster. Like Trócoli and Jose Medina could fight for who's the worst on the roster. Like, we could give him Tristan Vines next, and I think Tristan Vines would probably put up a bit of a better fight against him. You know what I'm saying? Like, this isn't a high level game on the opposition. Like, nobody, Mansour Abdul-Malik, has beaten is really all that. I guess his contender series win is kind of nice, though. That's like the one positive is he beat a guy in Wes Schultz who then went on to win on this past season and has a UFC contract. But, he is a can crusher at the moment with a draw to Cody Brundage. So slow and steady wins the race as far as building him. But being, that he is 28, I do think, a level jump in a decent direction is a solid idea. I don't need him fighting, 0-2 guys in the UFC anymore. Let's keep running. Next fight on the card. It was Iwo Baraniewski and Ibo Aslan. I would say this is the best 90-second or less fight that I have ever seen in my life. These two absolutely slugged for a minute and 29 seconds. Both guys were hurt. Baraniewski gets rocked. He rocks Ibo Aslan. Oh my God. It was just madness, man. It was just madness. Just a true street fight, just sitting in the pocket, slugging wild fist. Both guys getting hurt. Both guys putting their all into it. Aslan just coming in with his chin right on the center line, ripping overhand shots, and then Baraniewski catches him with the perfect hook, drops him, and puts him out with ground and pound. Iwo Baraniewski's a fun watch, man. Polish prospect with the Polish power, definitely carrying the torch for Jan Blachowicz here. I like Iwo Baraniewski, but I will say a performance like that, it was really fun, but doesn't tell me, oh shit, man, he's ready to run it up with these higher level guys. It's like, okay, he won in a crazy brawl against Ibo Aslan, who was on a 2-fight losing streak. Still impressive how he did it. To lay out Ibo Aslan and fight an Ibo Aslan style of fight and beat him at that style of fight, it demands respect. But, I still recognize that Baraniewski was hurt a couple of times, was getting clubbed with shots over the top. If Baraniewski lands and then, Ibo catches him with a different punch, like this fight could have easily went the other way with the way they were just trading chaotic shots in close range. Now, I think Iwo Baraniewski's definitely like blue chip as far as prospects are going in this division. And he's one, I think, to keep an eye on. But we have to recognize that he is, on the young side as far as this division goes. He's 27 at light heavyweight. There's a lot of time that we can build him up. And I think slow and steady is something that really, at the end of the day, wins the race. And I think like Ozzy Diaz would be a cool fight for Iwo Baraniewski. Like, I think even though Ozzy Diaz probably loses to Ibo Aslan, I think slow and steady, give him a debuting guy, give him, I don't want to say a softball, but I do have to say, I think give him a softball, don't throw him out there to the fucking killers. Don't rush him up too quick. I mean, if they want to do something crazy, you can do, okay, him versus Adolfo Bellato, right? A guy who's won 1-1 in the UFC. It is also, a contender series contract winner. That's fine with me, but I don't know, with a young guy like him, and I don't want it to go in the wrong direction too quick, I don't want to see it fall apart. You could potentially do the Battle of Poland, him versus Marcin Prokhnio. That's fine with me. I'll also add this. Keep Ibo Aslan on the roster, please. Don't cut Ibo Aslan from the UFC. Don't make that mistake of letting Ibo Aslan go. I don't want to see Ibo Aslan out of a job just yet. I really think that Ibo's fun, regardless of him not being very good. Like, why not have him fight Ivan Urslan? Why not have him fight, Dior Nurgajai or Kevin Christian? And there's a chance that he goes out and wins. I mean, he's got a pretty dangerous style. Ibo Aslan's a fun watch. Or maybe if Junior Tafa loses to Billy Elikana next month, you do Ibo Aslan versus Junior Tafa rebook. That's great. Keep him around. You can't fire the guy that brings entertainment. Yes, skill set, entertainment, hell yes. Good win for Iwo Baraniewski nonetheless. Jalin Turner absolutely beat the piss out of Edson Barboza. He cut him with an elbow early round one, rocked him several times to the body and head, and just completely shut Barboza down. Had him on, I was going to say the ropes, but had him against the cage and like had him metaphorically on the ropes and beating him up with shots, attacking, dropping him. Thank God that the ref stopped it. They could have stopped the standing. They could have stopped it earlier. Edson Barboza was done for. He looked like a flat tire trying to drive down the goddamn highway. He got the absolute piss kicked out of him by Jalin Turner. This was a great get-back fight for Jalin Turner, who looks scary. Like, if you're a striker at 155 pounds, Jalin Turner at 6'2", 6'3", he's a problem. And he's got power in both hands, and he seems to have the confidence risen once again. And you got a guy who's fought good opposition, guys like Dan Hooker, guys like Mateusz Gamrot. It's been high-level fights for Jalin in the past, and then obviously losses to Bajo Mendez, losses to, Money Moicano. And then you give him a lesser fighter and Edson Barboza, who's, towards that final phase of his career, but he makes it look easy. I think that a cult banger fight, which I don't know if they'll do, because Esteban Ribovics is a great prospect, but I do think Jalin Turner and Esteban Ribovics would be live for just madness in the way that fight would go down. Or potentially Kawe Fernandez, who's a sick striker. Jalin coming off a quick KO win, I have to imagine he'd want to fight earlier in 2026, rather than wait until the second half of the year. I'm thinking, by summertime at the latest, but potentially can get him on a spot on a fight night card in Q1. And I say, why not? If Jalen's ready to keep this ball rolling, I'd love to see him fight. Now, to be fair, he does have a big weight cut, being that he's one of the, tall and lanky guys at 155. So I'm sure he doesn't want to turn around in 8 weeks, but maybe, 4 months. All right. So we're in December. Maybe we get him, April, early April, first week of April, maybe last week of March, something like that. He's down to keep on keeping on. I want to see it. Now, for Edson Barboza, if Bobby Green loses to Drakkar Klose, I think Edson Barboza versus Bobby Green is a good fight. I think that would be a lot of fun. And I say, why not put that fight together? I'd like to watch it. If Edson's going to stick around. I don't think he should. I think Edson's cooked. But, could he beat a guy like Bobby Green? I think potentially. Jalin, though, at 30, he's still got some legit fights coming his way. And, if you told me Jalin Turner was going to fight Terrence McKinney, I think he's live to go out and thrive, I think he can definitely win a lot of fights in the UFC. I think he could give big problems to Tom Nolan, who's on a roll right now. I really think that Jalin Turner, if he has confidence, he's still top 15. He's still right there. He's amongst the better, portion of UFC lightweights, and he has the physical tools to go alongside of it. I'm looking at the lightweight top 15. Ignacio Bahamondes got him, but is it crazy to think he knocks out Benny Dariush in the first round? I feel like he would. So, yeah, big W for Jalin Turner getting back in a big way here. Next fight, Marvin Vettori, Bruno Ferreira. I think Marvin Vettori's washed. He's done. It's just he hasn't gotten any better. He's actually gotten progressively worse. It's crazy to see. It's just he's stiffer than I've ever seen. He can't put his punches together. He can't land takedowns. Ferreira looked really good. Ferreira showed the best gas tank of his fighting career. Now, to be fair, Bruno Ferreira also weighed 189 for a fight that takes place at middleweight. So he was 3 pounds over the non-title middleweight limit of 186. He's coming in heavy as hell, and his gas tank looked better, but are we sure that the hole is shored up when he makes 186 or 185, with 3 less pounds of weight to cut, maybe that's the difference maker between him gassing in the third round or not. Marvin Vettori looked great on the scale. He looked like he did everything right in training. It's just he can't figure it out. He has decent moments. He could have got the fight. It was a coin flip at the end of it. It was close. Vettori had some good shots he got through, and Ferreira also landed some good shots, but it's just the bigger optic moments for Ferreira. Busting Vettori up is really what won him the fight and putting the pressure on. And Vettori, like when he lands, is kind of like pepper and pause versus when Ferreira hits, it's a Hulk smash. And that was the ultimate difference maker, is the damage and impact of the shots. Bruno Ferreira, though, like this is a massive W for his fighting career. He just beat a guy in Marvin Vettori who was ranked number 14. At one point, fought for the belt, has a win over Paulo Costa. Bruno Ferreira's in the top 15 now. Bruno Ferreira has done it. And looking at number 15, it's Gregory Rodriguez, who Bruno Ferreira knocked out. I think it would be maybe crazy to say, but Paulo Costa, Bruno Ferreira is a sick fight. Joe Pyfer, Bruno Ferreira is a sick fight. Like, why not have fun with this? Let's throw some madness out there. And I want to see Bruno Ferreira against fun strikers. Like, let's see what would happen. I think that Bruno Ferreira is okay, but like I just don't see him getting into the top 15 beyond the 15 or 14 rank. You know, I don't see him as one of those elite guys, but I don't know. Missing weight in this one's tricky though, because does he deserve to jump into the rankings missing weight? Probably not. But they might then put Joe Pyfer in and then take Vettori out of the rankings. So it becomes a weird scramble because Pyfer was in the rankings, but now Gregory Rodriguez took a spot. I just think that Bruno Ferreira is definitely somebody that, at the very least, with his pressure style, delivers entertainment value as far as this division goes. Now, for the side of Marvin Vettori, man, it's just 4 losses in a row, and it's, what, 1-5 in his last 6? His last win is the Roman Dolidze controversial decision, and then he lost the rematch. Win before that is Paulo Costa in 2021. Marvin Vettori has really fallen upon hard times in his career, and, like, looks like he's completely fallen off. Like it's definitely a bad look for Vettori. I don't know what the fuck Vettori's got left. Like I'm thinking of fights against Dustin Stoltzfus make sense for Vettori. And even then, you know, Stoltzfus could have some moments and end up getting him. If he's fighting Roman Kopylov, I think that's a problem. I mean, bro, Iron Turtle is a hard fight. Him versus Iron Turtle actually makes more sense than anything. And I think Iron Turtle's a tricky matchup for Marvin Vettori. He really is fallen from grace. This is a guy that fought for the belt. This is a guy that went on a run. See where he's at now is crazy because you look at him in, you know, age years, he's not old, but in miles on the car, he is old. And the tragic downfall of Marvin Vettori into the thriving of Bruno Ferreira. Congratulations. Let's keep running. Big win for Bruno. Nazim Sadykhov got absolutely destroyed. Ziam look amazing. Grapple fucked him round number 1, outstrike the hell out of him, and then elbows from hell and beat the living shit out of him at the end of round number 2. Thank God the ref stopped it. Sadykhov was done for. Yeah, Ziam is a problem at 155. He's put it together. This is not the Ziam that got choked out by Terrence McKinney. This is not Ziam that's this little skinny, weak fucking fighter. Like, this is a Ziam who is good in all areas with violent instincts and true finishing ability. Nazim Sadykhov, I don't want to say he got embarrassed, but like he kind of did. He got the absolute shit kicked out of him in this fight. And Ziam looked like a goddamn destroyer of worlds, man. It's hard to deny Ziam a chance into the top 15. We saw number 13 ranked Grant Dawson get knocked out on this card, and Manuel Torres look amazing. Manuel Torres versus Ziam would be a crazy fight. I know Mauricio Hufi is currently booked, but a fight that also jumps out to me, depending on timelines and availability, Ziam versus Ignacio Bahamondes is a proper break into the top 15. Like, I really think that when I look at what Ziam has been able to do, pile up these wins. He has won, what, 6 in a row now? Winning 6 fights in a row, not losing since that Terrence McKinney loss in 2022. It's hard for me to say no to the rankings. He's finished the past 2 of 3 by KO. I do feel like it's kind of time to give him a ranked opponent. Like, you could give him Kawe Fernandez in a rebooking, I guess. Like, how many fights is this kid going to have to get in a row to get a shot into the rankings, especially when he goes out and finishes a guy, Nazim Sadykhov, who hadn't lost since his pro debut? It's a big deal. Ziam versus Ignacio Bahamondes would be sensational. And if timelines are to work out, I really do like the possibility of those two locking horns and fighting. Of course, you never know what timelines are return and how everything works out. there's a chance that, unfortunately, Ziam is going to have to keep waiting from the sidelines for a shot into the rankings. And they're going to be like, hey, Perez, sorry, man, we'll give you the Michael Johnson, Alexander Hernandez winner, and then maybe then you get a chance at the rankings if you win 7 in a row, So I would much rather see them do the right thing and give a proper fight to Ziam against Ignacio Bahamondes, a chance in the rankings. Like Mauricio Hufi got destroyed by Benoit Saint-Denis. He's ranked number 14. They're giving him the number 9 guy in the world for Ziam. Talk about the fucking Dana White privilege. And then Benoit Saint-Denis coming off the win. He's fighting Dan Hooker. That makes sense. But like Mauricio Hufi getting pushed by the UFC. They're giving him Fiziev after getting his ass kicked. Granted, it was against a grappler in BSD. But Ziam winning all these fights in a row and like can't find his way into the rankings, give him a ranked opponent. Give him Ignacio. So big performance for Ferreira nonetheless. I really thought that he's shown a maturity in his game and his UFC career has really come together beautifully. Respect to Ziam. Next fight, Maycee Barber, Karine Silva. I thought Maycee Barber put out a pretty good effort against Karine Silva, especially after getting illegally upkicked in round 2. I thought 29-28 was definitely fair. Karine Silva gets the first round, second and third Barber. But weird, one judge gave 30-27 Barber. I don't know if he was just staring at Barber's ass the whole time or what. I don't understand that scorecard. That was done by a moron. Looking at Maycee Barber, I know Erin Blanchfield said she will never fight Maycee Barber, but he kind of has to. She kind of has to, man. She's coming off the Tracy Cortez win. Barber now coming off that Karine Silva win, and Barber's been on a win streak. I know they were scheduled to fight and it fell apart. It's time to get it rebooked. It's time to do that fight. I like the matchup a lot. Maycee Barber's relentless with ground and pound. She's got a high striking output. She's got good grappling defense. She's got skill sets in all areas, and she's got good cardio. Probably the better striker than Erin Blanchfield, and her takedown defense is quite good. How does Erin Blanchfield get on top? If she can't take her down, she's going to have to bulldoze forward and bully her back. Maycee Barber's quick. Maycee Barber's good at winning decisions. Erin Blanchfield and Maycee Barber is also a fight that, like, the winner is then truly in contention for a title. I mean, if Barber wins, what's it, 8 in a row? It would be, like, hard to deny her. Now, obviously, there is one other option, and that could be Manon Fiorot versus Maycee Barber. But remains to be seen. I don't know. Seeing Natalia Silva take the fight against Thug Rose has me wondering what the UFC's plans are with Valentina, if they wanted to wait and then maybe fight the Kayla Harrison, Amanda Nunes winner, as opposed to defending her belt at 125, if there's a super fight intention there, and they would rather go towards that route as opposed to have her fight some of these other contenders, and then maybe, an interim title or potentially, forcing her to vacate the belt like they have with other champions. I don't know. Remains to be seen, but I definitely think that Maycee Barber amongst the elites here in this women's flyweight division, and I got to start putting more respect on her name. Currently, what is she ranked? Number 5 in the world. She just beat number 9, Karine Silva, but she's won several in a row. And you look at Blanchfield, ranked number 4. It's the fight to make. They should rebook it. They should make it happen. They have to. They have to. I know Erin Blanchfield's like, this girl didn't fight me last time. She pulled out last minute, but they have to fight. It's the only sensible option. So Maycee Barber, Erin Blanchfield, in a proper top contenders fight to go down makes sense. And Karine Silva, I mean, bro, you can throw her Tracy Cortez. She put out a decent performance here. Tracy coming off a bad loss. I think that's an easy matchup to make too. Why not? Something like that. Could go Miranda Maverick. I don't know. Depends what the UFC wants. I don't really care. Whatever they want to do. But for Maycee Barber, I have a take, and it's Erin Blanchfield. Book it. Next fight, Terrence McKinney, Chris Duncan. Lives to the expectation. I mean, Terrence McKinney is chaos. I mean, he had Chris Duncan badly hurt early in round 1. He was ripping him with wild power shots, going for jump knees. And then, they're scrambling on the inside. Takedown attempt by Duncan. And then, bam, elbow in close range. McKinney goes down and he's done. Terrence McKinney has no heart. Terrence McKinney has no gas tank. Terrence McKinney beats the shit out of you or you beat the shit out of him. There's not any in between. He's not going to be coming back from any adversity in fights. That's just not his style. It's not who he is. Terrence McKinney is one speed, and when it falls apart, it's done. It's a rocket, and that's it. When it's out of fuel or when it gets hit with something, there is no adaptation, a game plan, find a new way to win. No, he folds, and he folded. Chris Duncan beat the shit out of him with some ground and pound, and then ended up catching him in the anaconda choke and pulled off a massive win in round 1, right at the 2.5-minute mark. So Terrence McKinney, kind of the 2.5-minute wonder, actually loses at the 2.5-minute mark. So now 2 minutes, 29-second wonder for him. And, he lost that quick fight to Esteban Ribovics. But still, Terrence McKinney's must-see. If he's on the card, you have to watch because it's always entertainment. But my God, he doesn't have any defense. He doesn't know what defense is. I really don't think Terrence McKinney has a clue what defense is. Chris Duncan is good, though. Chris Duncan is somebody that's kind of paid his dues now in this UFC lightweight division. I mean, he's won 4 fights in a row. The last loss is Manuel Torres, who I'm sure will be ranked Monday after looking amazing. And I think that Chris Duncan is one of those guys that's like on the cusp of breaking into the rankings. But unfortunately, welcome to a fucking jam-packed division of disgusting savage killers. You don't have an easy road into the rankings. There is one fight that stands out to me. I want to see the stylistic matchup. Chris Duncan versus Kawe Fernandez seems like a very good fight. Now, of course, maybe Duncan is like, bro, I just beat this guy. Like, why? Like, this is the fight you're going to give me now so I can see complaints. And then, I don't know. But Chris Duncan's a guy that's always down to fight. He also wants to tell his story on a podcast. I'll have him on mine. I'll reach out to him this week. Could fight the, Jakar Close Bobby Green winner, I guess. That's also a possibility for Chris Duncan. But I definitely think he's like a win or two away from breaking into the top 15. And I definitely don't think that he wants to fight Fares Ziam for that shot. He shouldn't have to, but they might give him Fares Ziam. I like the idea of him in a fun fight. And him in a fucking scrap with the side of Kawe is sick. Now, if Ludovic Klein is healthy, obviously, he broke his leg in the last fight. If Ludovic Klein can make a turnaround on the timeline, then yes, Chris Duncan and Ludovic Klein is perfect. But I'm just not so sure that he can make that kind of turnaround. And if he can't, then, I think we kind of go in a different direction. Now, for the side of Terrence McKinney, what the hell are we doing with Terrence McKinney? The UFC tends to feed him cans, and then he just loses if you're any good. So we're kind of in no man's land with Terrence McKinney at this point. Like, they could say, oh, hey, Edson Barboza, you want to fight Terrence McKinney? But I don't think they'll do that to him, to Edson. I don't know. It just doesn't seem that realistic. I'm looking at the weight class, and I'm like, who is somebody they can give him? I don't know. They're going to do Balaji Oki McKinney. I don't really see it. Maybe they give him Darius Flowers. They're like, yo, let's just give him a guaranteed W. But if you want my real take, if you're not matchmaking with like the intention of like protecting Terrence McKinney and like you're looking to give him fights, then I think Terrence McKinney and Jim Miller could be guaranteed fireworks. I know Jim Miller, legend of the game, and it's a risk for Jim Miller's health throwing him out there against Terrence McKinney. But you tell me now, that couldn't be a sick fight. And I think Jim Miller, if he survives the onslaught, is so live to win by submission against Terrence McKinney. I think that's actually a really sensible fight to be had. I hope they do Terrence McKinney versus Jim Miller. Mr. One-round chaotic wonder versus a guy that has had more UFC fights than anybody else. I feel like that's the right matchup to be made, and I'd be very down to see what would happen between those two. Big win for Chris Duncan here. Next fight on the card, Grant Dawson, Manuel Torres. I foretold you this would happen. I said first round knockout Torres, and I thought he'd catch him. Hit him with the right, dropped him with the damn left on the inside. Dawson was slugging some wild overhands. Takedown defense of Manuel Torres was sharp, and he wasn't really allowing Dawson to pressure him backwards. And I felt like Dawson's chin was made out of glass. And it was, and it is. Manuel Torres connected with the perfect punch, and that was the fight. Manuel looked more patient than we had ever seen before, which is a big deal. Manuel Torres is really starting to find his footing in the UFC and figure out his style and develop a calm that he didn't have against Ignacio Bahamondes, which ultimately cost him against Ignacio Bahamondes after the beautiful pullback counter straights got to him twice and ended up knocking him out in the first round. But Manuel Torres is a devastating force to be reckoned with, and definitely one of Mexico's up-and-coming stars here in the UFC lightweight division. It's must-see TV. It's first-round knockout, but also now some patience to his game. Manuel Torres, I mean, he just violently starched Grant Dawson, who was on a decent roll after the bad loss to Bobby Green, but ultimately that chin is, just a walking red flag on the side of Grant Dawson. And it was, and he got knocked the fuck out badly. UFC surprised me with some matchups, like when Mauricio Hufi versus Fiziev. So obviously they're not going to do Hoofy versus Torres. They have then, BSD versus Hooker, which obviously he's not going to get that type of fight. It depends, though. Is Michael Chandler fighting McGregor or not? If he's not, Michael Chandler versus Manuel Torres is fucking fantastic. Okay? That is a perfect fight. Also could do Renato Moicano versus Manuel Torres, another perfect fight. I just don't know what their intention is, whether or not they are, pushing towards this McGregor Chandler thing, if that's real or not. And then obviously with Money Moicano, I don't know if he wants to fight again because he's having so much success streaming. I just think Manuel Torres, it's going to be, somebody probably that's ranked, and now he'll be ranked. I wonder if they're going to do this, though. And this is kind of throwing a monkey wrench in my initial plans, but I wonder if they would say, hey, we'll give you Ferez Ziam instead of Ziam versus Bahamondes, depending on timelines, because they both fought on this card. That's a scary fight for Manuel because Ferez Ziam is a long-range counter striker at times. Granted, he does bring good pressure. I think the power of Torres could work, and he's evolved since the Bahamondes fight, but that is also a matchup that could be had. We'll see. Definitely interesting options here for Manuel. The matchmaker is going to have some work to do in 2026. Now, for the side of Grant Dawson, he needs a layoff. He was on a nice little win streak. He's probably going to be unranked. I kind of like him versus Nasrat Haqparast. Two good fighters coming off bad first-round knockout losses. And I'm cool with them setting them up to fight against one another in their next matchup. And, Nasrat isn't necessarily the biggest puncher, which that's good for Grant. And if he can use the grappling, he can win. Grant Dawson's got all the tools on the ground, but if he can't take you down and embrace the grind, you strike. He can't strike, dude. He can't take a punch. And how much more evidence of that y'all need? You know what I'm saying? Big win from Manuel Torres. Let's keep running. Next fight, main card opener. If you guys are enjoying the video, make sure you hit the likes. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and hype the video too. Jan Blachowicz and Bogdan Guskov. Old man Jan Blachowicz takes out Bogdan Guskov. No, he doesn't. I guess he draw with him, but he kind of took him out. He won 2 out of the 3, but then the second round. Let's go round by round. Round number 1. Blachowicz was sharp with straight punches, kind of both of them sitting in the pocket. Guskov standing in front of Blachowicz. A little bit too much, getting his leg chopped up. Blachowicz still connecting with long shots and long jabs and, finding some moments and having Bogdan Guskov uncomfortable. Both guys hurt each other in the first round, but I thought Blachowicz had done more in round 1, a little bit sharper, and Blachowicz deserved the win after round 1. So we get to round 2, and Bogdan starts finding his range. You can see the confidence growing. Bogdan ends up dropping Jan Blachowicz with a perfectly timed straight right hand and beats the absolute shit out of him for the whole round. I'm talking about pounding him out with elbows from top position and bust him open and just 10-8, some clear 10-8 round. I scored at 10-8 for Bogdan Guskov, and I scored 10-9 round 1 for Blachowicz. Round number 3, Bogdan starts the round looking pretty good, catching Jan with some shots, but Jan just keeps on pressing. There's this element of Jan that he gets stronger as the fight continues. And the fact that he didn't get knocked out is he's still confident in his recovery and durability. And then he ends up catching Bogdan with some shots, busting him up a little bit, making him uncomfortable. Bogdan's breathing through his mouth, kind of running a little bit. Jan's tracking him down. Blachowicz, towards the end of round 3, catches him with a perfectly timed right hook on the inside against the cage. Down goes Bogdan. Blachowicz getting some shots off. Bogdan gets up, tries to slug back. But by this point, Jan wins the fight. Or he wins the round, rather. Wins the third round. Huge moment. He takes the first and third, but 10-9 in both respectively. And then the second round, 10-8 Bogdan. We have a draw. Yo, we have a draw. Jan Blachowicz can't get a freaking break, man. Hasn't won a fight in years, but is still doing great work. Draws with Bogdan, finishes the fight strong. Loses a competitive decision with Ulberg. Loses a controversial one to Pereira. Draws with Ankalaev. And then the Rakic win back in 2022. So he's 0-2-2 in his last 4 fights. What a fucking wild outcome. Jan Blachowicz cannot find a win. But my God, if this was a 5-round fight, I think he could have got it. So I will give you guys an idea. With a draw, it's hard for me to want to inconclusively move forward past this fight. Obviously, if there's inavailabilities and whatnot, things could change. But I think Jan Blachowicz versus Bogdan Guskov is a good 5-round fight to do. Maybe a main or co-main event, maybe on a card in Europe. I feel like it's a good idea to push for 5 rounds. I don't know. Maybe they do it in 3 rounds again, and it is what it is. But I would really like to see a 5-round affair between these two instead of another 3-round fight. But we'll see what the UFC decides, and we'll see what the timelines of return are for both men. Obviously, this, kind of puts bit of a halt in the hype of a guy in Bogdan Guskov that was surging up the ranks pretty fast. I mean, he, fought the number 5 guy in the world while he was ranked number 11. That's a big deal. Blachowicz now draws with number 11. I was thinking with Jan winning, I mean, maybe a Prochazka fight on the horizon, potentially, depending on what the UFC decides with Ankalaev and obviously Ferreira and Olberg. And then obviously there's Khalil Roundtree who's in the running. Guskov or Blachowicz could fight him. But it's like hard for me to want to move past this fight with an inconclusive result like a draw. I'd rather see it again. Like, I don't want to see them move on after the draw. I want to see them fight again after they have an even fight, especially as even as it was. And I'd kind of prefer let's do an extra 2 rounds to know for sure who's got it. If it's 5 rounds, I mean, you kind of favor Jan Blachowicz unless he gets knocked out in the first 2. So remains to be seen, man. Unfortunate it ended in a draw. It was a really good fight. It was fun. A nice stylistic clash. I like what I saw from, Jan Blachowicz, who can't even lift weights anymore, but still has power, still able to box and move and still look solid, even though his shoulder is completely busted. Makes me think prime Jan Blachowicz does bad things to Bogdan Guskov. And I do think, I'm not going to say it was like a fraud check of Bogdan, but it definitely halted the hype on Bogdan that had a lot of it after, running up with this nice knockout streak. So we'll see if the UFC decides to go the route of rematch. That's what I would personally do, and I would prefer to see that next as opposed to anything else. Good performances by both men, though, and a lot of respect to be had on Jan Blachowicz, nearly 43, going out and fighting a young buck like Guskov with a lot of hype and delivering a good performance and even knocking him down. Next fight on the card. Henry Cejudo versus Peyton Talbott. Man, Henry Cejudo knew what he was getting into. He knew he was fighting a kid in Peyton Talbott that had every advantage over him. The youth factor, freaking range, the height. Cejudo, maybe he had wrestling on paper, but Peyton Talbott showed out. I mean, he stung Cejudo up with big punches. Cejudo was chasing, throwing a lot of wild shots. Peyton Talbott hit a beautiful inside trip, got on top of Cejudo. They're back to striking some more. Talbott mixes it up on the feet, throws some shots up high, ends up blast double legging. Cejudo ends up in side control to finish out round number 1. Out wrestling Henry Cejudo is sensational for Peyton Talbott. That's insane evolution in such a short period of time. Like earlier this year, like he's losing a Hayani Barcelos like a year ago, right? And he's losing the wrestling to then beating an Olympic gold medalist at his own game in wrestling and outstriking him, of course, too. Round number 2, Talbot did bad damage to Henry Cejudo, dropped him, beat him up a bit, really just picked him apart. Peyton Talbot looked sensational. Cejudo just showed all heart, had a lot of dog in him, tried to swing some wild shots, but ultimately Peyton Talbot was too scrambly, too good with takedowns of his own, too slick with the strikes. Cejudo landed that big takedown in round 3, found his way on top, couldn't really do anything with it. They did scramble a bit on the ground, and Talbot ended up under him, I believe, in round number 2, and then Talbot was able to get back up to his feet, but Cejudo not really able to do anything from top position, kind of just held half guard a bit. And then striking some more, Cejudo's just getting pieced up, thudded up with big shots, Peyton Talbot connecting clean, and really just had Cejudo looking like an older man and was beat up badly at the end of the fight as Talbot was ripping Cejudo to the body, nearly knocked him out in round number 3, caught him with a big knee to the head in one of the final exchanges, had Cejudo running from him a bit. Obviously, Cejudo showed dog too and was trying to press and land, but Peyton Talbot, I mean, more than double the significant strikes. He put on a masterclass. Peyton Talbot is fucking good, man. I really think that loss to Honey Barcelos leveled him up so much. He just beat number 10 ranked Henry Cejudo. He's now going to be broken into the rankings. I don't know. Like with Peyton Talbot, he's got so much star power. It's like hard not to go from the Cejudo fight to bigger things. Like we can't be like, okay, well, he beat Henry Cejudo, so let's do Kyler Phillips now, To me, it seems like, okay, you beat Henry Cejudo. Who's another big name? Maybe he goes out and fights against Marlon Vera next, something like that. Maybe he goes out and they even push him to Corey Seneg. And like he seems to be on the UFC short list of guys to build. And I think they're building towards a Sean O'Malley fight and then eventually a world championship fight. I definitely think the UFC is in the Peyton Talbott business, and for good reason, because Talbot has a ton of star power, but he also has a fun style to go alongside of this star power. And I do think he has like a pretty meteoric rise that he's currently on up the ranks. And I think he's a problem. I know Barcelos fight ain't that long ago, but I think he can do good. If you gave him Marlon Vera, I'm picking Talbot. I think Peyton Talbot is on the cusp of something big. And if he goes out and fights Marlon Vera, which I kind of think they're going to push towards that, I think he beats Marlon Vera. I think he's going to be too slick for Marlon Vera. I think Marlon Vera gets caught chasing him around. You could also give him Rob Font. I mean, that's fine too, but I think he wins, Peyton Talbot's on the fast track, and a big name like Marlon Vera, that makes the most sense to me. For Cejudo, we don't need to talk about what's next. His retirement. $50K, we'll give it to him, and then they'll send him off. Listen, I hope that Cejudo starts coaching fighters or something. I feel like he could do, big things in this sport, from a coaching perspective. If he desires to do that, I don't know if it's something that's actually on his mind, but definitely could be something to consider for him. I really think that Henry Cejudo is a guy that deserves a lot of praise. If you just started watching him since the Aljo fight and the UFC comeback, like you don't remember the rise up the ranks and the hype that he had, and then him eventually, pulling off a competitive decision against Mighty Mouse, knocking out TJ Dillashaw, winning the bantamweight title, et cetera, knocking out Dominic Cruz, you just kind of see 0-4, but no, Henry Cejudo was great, and then he retired because, let me tell you, he was terrified of Petr Yan, which he should be, seeing how Yan looked in the main event. Glad that he did, because Petr Yan would have probably beat the shit out of him. But regardless, Henry Cejudo is a well-respected former two-weight champ that I think, should always be talked about as one of the better UFC fighters to ever do it, for sure. Definitely best combat athlete of all time. He demands a ton of respect, man. It's just that first retirement put a bad taste in the fans in the UFC's mouth, and then the comeback just went awry. He went 0-4 in the comeback. The comeback was failed, but it was not a failure because he made a shitload of money, and Dana White said he's going to give him $50K after this too, just for putting up a gutsy effort, which I'm happy about. Respect to him. Henry Cejudo, congrats on your career. Two-weight champ, Olympic gold medalist, not too shabby, man. And he's got a lot to be proud of. Obviously, Peyton Talbot is the now. Cejudo was the then, and that's how this game normally goes. Next fight. Brandon Moreno and Taira. So round number 1 was pretty competitive. Striking from Moreno looked okay, and then obviously it ended up on the ground, and it was competitive, but it was kind of stalling. I mean, Moreno had him in an inverted triangle position, but there was really nothing there, and he had it for several minutes throughout. Round number 1. Somehow they counted that as 4 minutes 27 seconds of control time for Taira in the fight, but did they not count any control time for Moreno, having him in that inverted triangle? I guess not. Modified triangle, whatever you want to call it. Taira did escape at the end of the round, threw some shots, was able to go for like a knee in the clinch, over-under position, and then attacked Moreno to close out the round. Taira looked pretty sharp. Round number 2 kicks off, Taira ripping some quick shots, but Moreno still connecting with some punches up high, and looks like a bit of a fight. Taira eventually scrambles to then get on top. They hit the ground. He takes the back of Moreno, and it looks like it's wraps. I mean, Taira from the back take is something different. And then he ends up in mount, and he's dropping big shots, and backside mount, and then ultimately the back control position, not even full mount, he was back control. And then he's throwing big shots, and Moreno's trying to build the base. The base gets broken down. Taira's dropping shots, and the next Mark Smith steps in and calls the fight. I thought it was an early stoppage. Taira was probably en route to getting a finish, whether by ground and pound or by submission, but, allow former world champion and legend of the flyweight division, Brandon Moreno, to have some time to figure it out, have some time to try and escape. Like, don't stop it so quick on a guy like Moreno. It's not like he went flat. Like, he was just getting hit, and he's like trying to rebuild his base. Was he going to get stopped in the next 30 seconds? Maybe. I'll even be willing to say probably, but let's let that 30 seconds go by. Let's give the former world champion a shot, So definitely was unfortunate for the side of Brandon Moreno and how it was stopped. But I do think that Taira looked incredible. Taira was absolutely on fire. And Taira, to me, looks like a problem for anybody at 125 pounds with his back takes in his ground game. I mean, it's next level shit. And he just keeps getting better. He's a lot better since that first fight with Brandon Royval. And I think if he rematch with Royval, that's a scary proposition for Royval. I actually think Taira versus, the winner of Royval and Manel Kape is a perfect fight, depending on the timeline of return for Alexandre Pantoja, which we'll get to that fight here in a moment. I think Taira versus one of them could be very interesting if, Pantoja ultimately fights for the belt again against, his recent foe, Joshua Van. Now, for Brandon Moreno, I think easy is kind of like him versus the loser of, Royval and Kopp. I think that's a real possibility. Aso Mabayev's coming off a big win, could potentially do that. Or maybe they even push for like a Kyoji Horiguchi Brandon Moreno fight, which I think that could still be a big deal. I was disappointed to see like the timeline of Mexico City. I wonder if Brandon Moreno is going to be good to go by then. Because Brandon Moreno in a big fight on that Mexico City card is great. I mean, having Manuel Torres, Brandon Moreno, have some of the faces of Mexican MMA on that card. It's a good idea and it's a needed idea. Early stoppage here, I feel like puts him in a position that we could potentially see Brandon Moreno with a relatively quick turnaround. Then just like the likelihood of the same level of matchup is different. And maybe Kyoji Horiguchi, coming off the biggest win of his, recent fighting career, would end up stepping in and fighting Moreno in a really high stakes fight. Obviously, Horiguchi called for the belt, but he's ranked number 8. With the circumstance going on with the, co-main event in the flyweight title. We'll see what, happens and what remains to be seen. But nonetheless, I do think Taira is a problem for whoever is the UFC flyweight champion. He is sensational on the ground, and his grappling skill set is a very unique one, and he's only 25, so that is terrifying for everybody at that weight class. Big win for him, for Moreno. I do think there's still some good fights left with him, and all love to the absolute dog, Brandon Moreno. All right, next fight on the card is the co-main. So I savage dog lock Joshua Van. All right. And this is not the way that I wanted my victory to come. Everybody acted, though, like Pantoja had no way to lose. Ultimately, this is fighting. Shit can go awry. You can get your kick caught and then get dumped, try to plant, and then have your elbow or shoulder dislocated. They said shoulder dislocation. It looked like his elbow was dislocated. Now, what we're hearing that is good is dislocation. So timeline of return for Pantoja might be a lot sooner than, the natural reaction had anticipation of. I think we need to book this fight ASAP. If Pantoja has a 3 to 5 month turnaround time, definitely go this route. I really want to see a proper fight between these two. Obviously, Taira, waiting in the wings, was sitting next to Dana White. He's definitely on the cusp of a title shot. And if Pantoja has delays to his return, Van versus Taira could, very well be the next fight that the UFC decides to book. But there's something that just feels, so inconclusive with how this ended. Now, I still am grateful on my pick, and I'm very proud of myself for calling Joshua Van to win, because regardless, he was the winner. And it was his doing that caused the injury. But at the end of the day, is it how we want it? No. Is it unfortunate? Yes. Was this fight just getting heated up? Absolutely. I want to see them run it. I do have to say, I like how Joshua Van wasn't scared of Pantoja, was sitting in the pocket, getting ready to slug, fought off the clinch position, was backing him up, caught his kick and dumped him. Joshua Van looked like a gangster there. But, arm or dislocation, arm break, whatever you want to call it, it's unfortunate how it ended. But I'm still on the side of success, proud of what happened here with me calling the savage dog lock Van when I was literally getting trashed. Like, there was no chance. Well, there is a chance. Even if it's a fluke, you can say. There's always a chance in this fight game of crazy shit going down. And maybe I manifested it, all right? I do think Joshua Van was going to get him either way, and I'm telling you, I think a rematch is worse for Pantoja, because now he loses that aura of invincibility because of what happened here, and you have Van just getting better and better and better and better at 24, and Pantoja now coming back from this injury, depending on, how is this recovery process going to be. You dislocate your shoulder. Granted, it looked like the elbow, but you dislocate your shoulder. We saw it with TJ Dillashaw. We've seen it with Aaron Pico. Like, that shit can fuck you up in fights. With TJ especially, it killed his fight against Aljo. So, remains to be seen how Pantoja is going to be coming back from this. But I do think that in a rematch against Joshua Van, I anticipate the odds closer, and I would favor Joshua Van again. I mean, there's going to be no flip on my confident side. I think Joshua Van was destined to become champ. He becomes champ. First Asian American champ, first champ born in the 2000s, and I mean, the only UFC fighter from Myanmar, Burma, and the first champion from there. So it's a pretty big deal for the nation. And Joshua Van, regardless of how it ended, there's a lot to be proud of here. At the end of the day, he is the fighter wearing the strap. If they were fighting to the death on, the street or in the middle of the jungle, Joshua Van would have been the man who came out with the opponent's head nonetheless, regardless of the unfortunate dislocation that took place after Joshua Van dumped Pantoja. But I will say, him dumping Pantoja is a good look for it. It's like Pantoja just slipped on a banana peel and it happened. All right. But he did get dumped Granted, how many times does a fighter get dumped like that and he's fine. Let's run it back ASAP, assuming Pantoja's timeline of return ain't bad, because I want to see a proper victory for Van, and I want to see a proper fight between these two. But ultimately, I have to be happy that my confidence and initial gut feeling and mental instinct stuck to the truth, and Joshua Van was able to go out and get the win, regardless of how it happened, how fluky it was, how much people want to be upset at me. Oh, well, whatever, it was a fluke. That shouldn't even count. Savage dog lock still hit. Savage dog lock still hit. Yeah, run it back ASAP. Run it back ASAP. I don't want to see Van Taira. It doesn't feel right. So as long as Pantoja, which I'm hearing that is dislocation, not a severe break, then we can get this thing rebooked ASAP. And I would love to watch a proper fight between these two. And I hope that it happens sooner rather than later. Hey, listen, proud for Joshua Van. Guy took the short notice fight against Royval to become the #1 contender and outdogged it. This one, it was quick work. And it wasn't, optimal scenario, but he becomes the UFC flyweight champion after injuring Alexandre Pantoja with the toss. And, they're pretty good with it. At the end of the day, he caught the kick and he dumped him pretty nice. The dump from Van led to the dislocation to Pantoja. It's not like Pantoja just tripped and broke his arm. It's like if he gave him a hard kick to the arm and the arm broke. I mean, at the end of the day, the kick still did the damage. The dump still did the damage. So Van deserves at least some credit here for showing balls and standing toe-to-toe with Pantoja in the first 26 seconds, ended up catching his kick and dumping him. But yeah, I get it. How many times does that not happen? I know, I hear it. But I'm still riding high off the win. I won't lie. I'm giddy for the fucking W. Joshua Van's one of my faves, man. I got to be happy for my guy becoming the world champion. Not how we want it, but we'll get the rematch, and he'll prove it, that he was going to get it the first time, and then, gets it even more sweet the second time we do it as a first defense for Van. So hopefully they get it soon. Well wishes to Pantoja. Definitely an all-time great champion at flyweight and deserves love. And not the way you want a title run to ever end, So, or a title reign, I should say. So hopefully ASAP, he's okay and good to go. Let's get to the main event. Merab Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you guys hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and hype the video, all right? Petr Yan has slayed the invincible dragon of Merab Dvalishvili. Merab looking to break the UFC record of 4 title defenses in a year. Does not happen. Petr Yan put on the performance of a lifetime. I scored this fight 50-45. I thought that Petr Yan had won every single round in this fight here. Understand the stats for a second. This one is huge. 2-29. And we'll retouch on the takedowns a little bit later throughout the post-fight reaction. But what I must say is Petr Yan, it was not just the takedown defense. Yes, it was spectacular, but it was the pressure. Okay, it's very hard for an offensive pressure-based wrestler to get the offensive pressure-based wrestling attack off successfully when you're forcing them backward. For a lot of the fight, Petr Yan is the one on the offensive and winning the battle of real estate, catching Merab Dvalishvili with bigger shots. Merab's throwing a lot of shots and he's ripping flurries, but Yan is landing the more significant and devastating strikes. If you just look at significant strikes based on numbers, you might be saying, oh, but look, more strikes from Merab, but then you watch the fight and you see the difference in impact. A significant strike, this can be a significant strike, and this can be a significant strike. And then this can be, just a typical total strike. You see, there's a wide disparity of what is a significant strike versus what is not. The significant strikes that Petr Yan landed, there was a lot more that were of devastating impact. Several times throughout this fight, Merab Dvalishvili was buckled. He was hurt. His legs were giving out. He was circling away after being stung by Petr Yan. Several times throughout this fight, he was hurt badly with shots to the body, whether it be a kick to the body at the end of the round where he's hurdling, grabbing, and then circling out, or punches to the body that have Merab making a literal sound and kind of just running away and showing that he's hurt. Which I don't blame him for doing that, by the way, because you don't want to get TKO'd against Petr Yan. He hits you hard to the fucking liver. You want to run. Petr Yan won the battle of optics. He landed the bigger and better shots throughout the entire fight. He stopped the takedowns. But where it was most impressive is Petr Yan was able to keep up the pace with Merab, land at a higher rate of accuracy, significantly higher rate of accuracy, and out-wrestle Merab. He out-wrestled the fucking wrestling machine, Merab, which I thought was amazing. Petr Yan landed 5 out of 9 takedowns. Merab landed 2 out of 29. It is insane to look at that stat and see Merab not only missing on 27 takedowns, but also being taken down 5 out of 9 times by Petr Yan, who though has some wrestling in the arsenal rather, but is known for his kickboxing style. Petr Yan has made some serious evolutions and adjustments to his game. My God, the performance was special. I mean, this was an awesome fight. It was fight of the night. It's such a banger. It could be recency bias. It feels like one of the better fights of the year, or at least better championship fights of the year. It was so competitive, though, the dominance of Yan on the scorecards. It was so competitive in the moments that, like, always you felt like Merab was still a little bit in the fight, trying, throwing shots, but then Yan just stinging him up, busting him open, beating the shit out of him. Petr Yan look insane. I scored this fight 5-zip. I don't know how they scored the first round from Merab. I don't know how you score the first 2 from Merab. I almost feel like, all judges scoring the first round for Yan is more head scratching. I'm like, okay, maybe the second. But only one judge gave the second round to Merab and then also scored the first from Merab. I just didn't understand that. The fact that Petr Yan did the unthinkable, right? And it's outmatched the pace, really, of Merab. Not necessarily in volume and output, but pressure and, like, not slowing late when Merab was the king of, the championship rounds. Like, that is what his game is built upon. The fact that Yan was backing him up late and catching him with shots, it was nothing short of amazing. I mean, he dumped Merab on his head. I believe it was round number 4. I don't know. Excuse me if it's not round number 4. I was streaming 7.5 hours earlier. But dumped Merab on his head, had striking success, kicked him nasty to the body. Like, it was amazing to see Petr Yan do the work like that. Now, Merab, he was kind of the man of optics. When he picked up Yan, right, and then he went to slam him, he was, like, celebrating as he's doing it. I do think that, like, kind of an element of that is, like, wasting time and wasting a little gas. Got to just get on top and trying to deliver some big ground and pound. Merab tried to really, outpace him and out-wrestle him, and it was a badass back-and-forth slobber knock. It was a great fight. It wasn't even slobber knock. That's not the word. It was just a badass back-and-forth, high-level warfare, okay? Petr Yan was the sharper blade, but also Petr Yan could keep up with the cuts from Merab Dvalishvili, slugging a lot of shots his way. And the significant shots, though favoring Merab, they're not. The true significant shots were Petr Yan throughout the entire fight. There is no statistic of having your opponent rock to the head or body. If there was, it's, 0 for Merab with, 5 or 6 on the side of Petr Yan. So it was just such a badass performance to see him completely shut down Merab's game and just look to be peak form. This is the best Petr Yan ever, bar none. He looked absolutely insane here against Merab Dvalishvili. And I think this is the best performance of Petr Yan's fighting career, and he's had some good ones. Where do they go from here? Rematch, or trilogy, I should say. I definitely would like to see that. I'll say something interesting, though. After the fight, Merab was on the mic saying, I wanted to make it a good fight. I come to entertain the people. I was like, yeah, of course. I mean, Merab likes to slug. I just didn't want to do a wrestling fight. I was like, Merab, you did shoot 29 takedowns. Listen, I love Merab just as much as the next guy. He's a great dude, but he still shot 29 takedowns. He just couldn't take Petr Yan down. I mean, if he could just, control and beat him up against the cage, I think, or, beat him up from top, he probably would have liked to be able to do that. But, yeah, interesting that he said that, he's a company man, which he is. I mean, taking 4 fights, defending the belt like that, it's crazy work. I think company man Merab needs a little bit of time off to recover all the cuts because he was busted up here. I would like to see these two fight, maybe April, May. You never know, though. Merab coming off a shitload of weight cuts. Maybe they decide to keep this fight for the White House, which is not a terrible idea. I think it would be a really cool fight to have on the White House card, but that's not till like June 14th or something like that. So I'd kind of prefer a little bit sooner because that's several months out. But definitely Merab needs at least 3 months, 4 months. I prefer 4 months, man. Dude's fighting way too much. Let's give him a break. I want more, maybe 5 months. Maybe we may wait till the damn White House. That's a good option. I think it's interesting, though, because this division has a lot of high-level fights coming soon. I mean, you look at January, you have Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong, potential top contender fight. Umar Nurmagomedov, Davis and Figueiredo, another potential top contender fight. I think with these two looming on the trilogy, I think the winner of those two fights could fight against one another, and then that would be like a proper number 1 contender. I definitely think Petr Yan versus O'Malley 2 is something the UFC might be interested in doing. I think Petr Yan versus Umar is great, but I think it would be insane if Merab, who literally attempted to break the record of most title defenses in a year, going for 4, would not be given an immediate title rematch to somebody he was able to beat the first time, regardless of the, oh, well, the hand was broken the first time for Petr Yan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope that the UFC does right by Merab. I hope that we get a, third fight between the two, early or mid. I'll say mid 2025. I think that would be a good thing. I want to see these two run it back, and I would definitely expect fireworks the second time or the third time rather, they show out. Seeing how good this one was, why the hell would they not do it? It was fight of the night. They got to do the trilogy. Marab's also really garnered a huge fan base with his activity rate. Like, you got to bring Marab back ASAP. Him and Jan running it back, part 3 is a great idea. Jan did look unbeatable. I mean, if he can keep up a similar pace, what the fuck can Marab do to stop it? He's got to land takedowns. If he can, I mean, fuck, it's gonna go the same as this time. And I think if you're that, in the division though, you're celebrating. Like Umar Nurmagomedov is dancing. He's like, okay, well, Jan, maybe I could find some success against him. But even Jan's a hard fight for Umar. Sean O'Malley's like, oh, I got to win the first. At the very least, Sean O'Malley's like, yo, I could get a title fight. Sean O'Malley goes out and chin Song Yadong. Something happens with Marab. Jan versus O'Malley, too. Insta title fight they're going to put together. But hopefully all things run smoothly. Then we get to see these two tangle for a third time and find out who's truly superior. Granted, funny how they both have like essentially 50-45 wins against one another. I do think that Petr Yan's is more devastating, though, because he did a shit ton of damage. But there is the element of, Merab had to cut weight, and he does it the old school way, not eating since Tuesday, and he's done it now the 4th time this year. Like, that's kind of insane, and that could deteriorate the performance. And like, he sparred fully earlier in the day, but he always does that. Merab's a wild one. They will make this fight happen again in 2026, and I very much look forward to watching them tangle again. But tonight is Petr Yan's night, and Petr Yan looked as good as any UFC bantamweight champion has ever looked. He looked like the boogeyman. This was what he was for a long time, and then he had the fall from grace for a while. Petr Yan looked like the monster he was always hyped up as on his initial championship run. And now we are really seeing a more terrifying Petr Yan here in title run number 2. And the division should definitely be instilled with some fear. Seeing high output and cardio Petr Yan with the grappling defense like that and the striking precision, he is a problem for everybody at 135 pounds. But I think first order of business, trilogy with Merab Dvalishvili before anything else, man. I was so impressed by Petr Yan's strike work to the body and head, the accuracy on his shots to the head, the clean kick to the body that hurt Merab, the fact that he noticed the body was open to the side of the liver and he kept attacking it, and he landed numerous big shots to the body. I mean, it was just a master class and a half for Merab for Yan to shut Merab out 5 rounds to 0, Michael. I know they saying 49-46, 49-46, 48-47, but it was 5-0. Petr Yan destroyed him in this one and put on really, I think, the championship performance of the year. Obviously you can say, oh, but Hamza was dominant and Islam was dominant. Yeah, but as far as like actual class in all areas and a high-paced, damage-based fight, like the Petr Yan championship win this year, this was the best. This was the best. Sensational performance. Petr Yan, badass. That was the main event of UFC 323 and the main event of all UFC pay-per-views, the last numbered event on pay-per-view for at least 7 years with the Paramount deal. Or maybe they'll surprise us and they'll do some pay-per-view thing. But word on the street is no. I want to quickly run through the predictions and go over the results. So, lost in the main event, I had Merab to Yan, as we all did, and Yan looked amazing. I had Van over Pantoja as my underdog lock for this card. Comes through. Obviously, injury and dump into the arm break instead of a clean punch to the jaw, but a win's a win at the end of the day. Happy for victory. Had Taira over Moreno, had Talbott over Cejudo, had Guskov here. It ended up a draw. Had Torres by KO in the first round. Bam, bam. Had Duncan for the win by finish. Yes, he gets it done, and I had mentioned sub. Had Silva lost with Barber. Had Sadykhov lost with Ziam. Pick flip was dumb as hell from Ferreira to Vettori. I should have stuck with the initial, man. What the fuck? Dumb of me there. Win for Barboza for Jalin over Barboza. Win with Baraniewski over Ibo inside distance. Sub over, Malik towards Trócoli. Yes. Santos over Naimov. Yes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4-1, 4-2, 4-3. 5-1, 6-1, 6-1-1, 6-1-1. What the fuck is my counting skills? Hold on. It's 3 in the morning, man. 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 4-1, 4-2, 4-3, 5-3, 6-3, 6-3-1, 7-3-1, 8-3-1, 9-3-1, 9-4-1. But if you followed Sunday, Jay, 10-3-1, fucking flip is what it is. Fantastic work is how I feel, honestly, after the calls. And, you know, it's the fight game. Crazy shit can happen. As far as some of the confident parlays hit, so lock hit with Joshua Van, Lock City Parlay, which was Turner and Santos, comes through. Also some alternates to that, like Santos and Baraniewski, Turner and Duncan come through as well. Baraniewski, Turner and Duncan comes through as well for the people, which I'm pretty grateful for. Santos, Baraniewski, Turner and Duncan comes through at plus 375. So pretty good stuff overall with some of the safer parlays on the slate, man. You know, we had obviously the Guskov line. You know, a lot of the books are going to void you for the draw unless you played the three-way. So you should be good to go. If you had your money maybe coming back, or maybe the parlay void and you're dancing, but you know, depends where you're at the end of the day. Maybe you reach out. Listen, you got to argue a little bit. If they're going against you, telling you no, you got to put up a little bit of a thunderous fight. But at the end of it all, Marab, the one confident pick that loses. 6 out of 7 were most confident picks. Underdog Joshua Van comes through. Underdog Torres comes through. There's some great calls throughout the card that I feel pretty happy about. But nonetheless, the experience of, you know, the fan side of me, right? Sitting, doing the live stream with you guys, doing play-by-play and watching it along and just having a blast. This card was off the chain. This was such a great way to end the pay-per-view era. And I couldn't have been happier. 2026, expect more madness. I can't wait for it. One more card this year. So make sure you tune in to the UFC Vegas card next week and the picks later on today. Obviously, I'll have consistent content throughout the off weeks with news, with some gaming streams, with more live stream Q&As, and the whole Mahoy. So keep it locked in with your boy. I hope you guys enjoyed the recap show and the fight card and the fight week content. Make sure you hit the likes. Make sure you hit the subscribe. Make sure you turn the post notifications on. And don't just leave them on personalized. Put them on all so you don't miss a video. Hype the video too. W in the comments if you got nothing to say. But I do want to hear what you think of everything. And I better get some damn respect to my name, the Joshua Van call. I don't care how you say, oh, it ended fluky. This and that. I called it. Put some respect on it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you all in a little while, all right? It's 3:02 a.m. I'm about to go crash, all right? Love you guys. Good night. Peace.